Where do you get your inspiration for shipping containers? Just coming to find just these beautiful areas. Like, what's the secret?
Where I want to go stay and where I want to be and where I'm most relaxed and at peace, and that's where I want to build. Guys, Mike Hicks here with Mike Does. I'm out here on one of our container home builds. I wanted to take you guys through the process that I use to find a property like this. I get so many calls asking me, A, can you build me a container home? Or B, how do I get started building a container home? So why ask me the question when I can just show you? I'm going to show you the process that I take when I'm going into a new area and looking at property. Whether that be the lot itself or working with the local jurisdiction to find out what's allowed. That's what we're going to cover in today's video. Building the container home's not the hard part, and this also applies to tiny homes, tree houses, yurts. The first place to start and the hardest part of this process is finding the piece of property suitable for your build. So you want to start with the local jurisdiction, go to them and see, hey, is this allowed here? If they aren't allowed, you've got two choices. You can accept that and move on, which is what I tend to do, unless the location is just beyond awesome and worth fighting for. So if you decide not to move on, you can ask for what's called a variance. A variance is a request that you'd make with the local planning and zoning board. That's asking them to deviate from the current zoning requirements. If the variance is granted, it permits the property owner to use their land in a way that is ordinarily not permitted by the zoning office. It's not a change in zoning law, but it's a waiver from the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Some examples of variances could be setbacks, lot size requirements, square footage requirements, type of structure, multifamily, single family. There's just many things that a variance could work for. In my experience, it's becoming more and more difficult to obtain variances due to more and more regulation from the local government. That's my experience in my area. That's not in the area that I'm working. That's tended to be the new normal, is that variances aren't given unless there's a hardship involved. If you've had a piece of property and say the zoning has changed, then maybe that's created a hardship. Or the lot is smaller than required, but it's a lot of record. That's a hardship. But if you buy a property with the new zoning already in place, or you buy a small lot, chances of getting a variance, are going to decrease because, well, you bought it knowing that, or you should have known that before you bought it, and you may not have done your research. So that's not looked at as a hardship. Like I say, a hardship is more of, I bought this property, zoning changed afterwards, and I had bought it with the intent with a different intent that's now not covered under the current zoning. Once you find out if they are allowed, or once you get your variance, there's several other questions you need to ask. What additional requirements do they have regarding tiny homes? Do they require engineered plans? I've built in places that, you can draw a plan out on the back of a paper bag and take it in, and I've built at places that they want engineered blueprints. So it varies. Can it be built and inspected off-site in another state or jurisdiction? So a lot with the tiny home, a lot of times they're manufactured in another area and then hauled in. You got to make sure that they'll allow that home in. Does it have to be built on site? Are there minimum square footage requirements? There's some that have no square footage requirements, some that require 500, some that require 900, some that require 1,200. It's going to vary at every location. So you want to make sure the location you're wanting to put your home in will allow your home to be placed there. Does my project require any special approval by the planning commission? If you don't meet these restrictions, or you have to go before the planning commission to get approval. We have a local jurisdiction here that says you have a minimum of 900 square feet, but we'll approve homes down to 500 square feet. They just have to be brought before the planning commission. What are the setbacks on the property? If you're looking at a piece of property, you have lot lines to the front, back, left, and right. How far off of each of those setbacks do I have to be? How far from the left and right side of the property do I have to be? How far from the front of the road do I have to be? How far from the back of the lot do I have to be? When you're looking at setbacks, there's sometimes that they'll require a buffer. So say you've got a residential property that sits next to a commercial property, they may require a buffer. A buffer could be vegetation, it could be man-made, it could be even a distance. It might say you have to be 50 feet from a residential property line with your building, where otherwise it would say 0. You might require a 10-foot fence between residential and commercial. It might require, shrubbery to be planted in between those. Probably the most important thing that we want to ask is the lot on sewer or septic, and are utilities available? If the lot's on sewer, that's going to be great. That's always a plus. If the lot's on septic, it's going to be more restrictive to what you're allowed to do. You'll want to have soil analysis done, perk test. The soil analysis will give you the idea of how many bedrooms you're allowed to have on the property, and how many feet of field line you're going to have on the property, based on the soil type. So once they determine the soil types and the size of the lot, this will tell you what you'll be able to put onto the lot. The grade of the lot will also play into effect when you're dealing with septic. You get to dealing with grade, you're looking at a grade over 25%. You're going to have an engineered septic system. More than likely your field lines are going to have to be 6 feet deep, have a curtain drain above them to run the water around them. Those are all things you need to take into account, especially with a steep lot. And more than likely you'll have engineered septic plans for something like that. Is a foundation required, or can it be set on piers? Do they require permanent or portable structures? Does the structure have to be mounted to a foundation? Can it be anchored like a mobile home? On a container home, would it have to be welded to the corner plates, or can it just set on there with gravity? What are they going to require you to do? So these are the things that I look for before I even say, okay, I'm ready to move forward with an offer on this lot, or do I want to even pursue this property anymore? Because a lot of times the zoning will be so prohibitive that it's not worth my time even looking. I can move on to a different area and a different property and not waste my time with the zoning. There's plenty of property out there available. So. All right, guys, now that you know what to look for when you're looking for a lot for your tiny home, container home, hobbit house, tree house, or whatever other kind of crazy house you have, it's not that hard, is it? Tune in next week, hit that like button, subscribe. Peace out.